The little black girl hid behind a row of lockers, calling the biker as heavy boots approached the main corridor. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's begin. The clock on the wall ticked in the silence of the school hallway, the low hum of fluorescent lights casting an eerie glow on the lockers lining the corridor. Inside this quiet space, a young girl, no older than 11, crouched behind a row of lockers, her small body trembling. Her wide eyes darted back and forth, scanning for any sign of danger. She clutched a cell phone tightly in her hand, its screen dim in the shadows. She had no time to think about the fear she was feeling. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall, getting closer, closer. She gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. The man in the boots was coming. The man who had been chasing her for weeks. The man who knew no mercy. She didn't know what he would do if he found her. He had already tried to get her before, but she had escaped. This time, she wasn't sure she could. Her breath hitched as she pressed herself tighter against the cold metal of the lockers, hoping to be hidden just long enough for the biker she had called to arrive. He was her only hope, her only chance of survival, her only chance to escape the nightmare that had been chasing her for so long. She had only a few seconds before he reached the corner. He was close now, too close. She could hear him, feel his presence looming over her. She didn't know what to do, but she had to act fast. She lifted the phone to her ear, her fingers shaking. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please come. I need you." The line clicked as the phone connected. She could feel her pulse in her throat, and the weight of the moment pressed down on her like a heavy weight. In that moment, she heard a voice, deep and steady, on the other end of the line. "I'm on my way," the biker said. And with those words, a sense of hope flickered in her chest. She wasn't alone. The sound of the boots grew louder, and her hands tightened on the phone. She closed her eyes, praying that help would come in time. The footsteps were now right outside her hiding place. The man was standing just a few feet away, his shadow stretching along the floor toward her. She held her breath, barely daring to move. The man's voice was cold, like ice. "I know you're in there, little girl," he called. "Come out now, and I'll make this easy for you." She didn't move. She didn't say a word. She couldn't. Her body was frozen in place, every muscle tense with fear. Her only hope now was the biker, and she prayed that he would make it in time to save her from the danger closing in on her. The footsteps were deafening now, each step of the man's boots vibrating through the hallway like a hammer hitting steel. She held her breath, clutching the phone tighter in her trembling hands, praying that he wouldn't find her. Her heart was pounding in her chest, each beat a countdown to whatever was about to happen. The man's shadow stretched across the floor, creeping closer to her hiding spot behind the lockers. She could feel the cold sweat on her skin as she pressed herself deeper into the shadows. Her mind was racing, but there was only one thought that kept repeating. "Please come, please." The phone pressed against her ear was silent, but she could still feel the comforting weight of the voice that had promised to come. The sound of heavy boots shuffled closer. She could almost hear his breathing, slow and deliberate. He was close, just a few feet away, and her body was frozen in fear. She couldn't make a sound. She had to stay hidden. She had to stay quiet. "I know you're in there, little girl," the man's voice boomed, cutting through the tense silence like a knife. "Come out now, and this will be easier for you." His voice was cold, mocking, and full of menace. The little girl's heart raced even faster. Her legs felt like jelly, and her stomach churned with fear. She didn't move, not an inch. She couldn't. She had to trust that the biker was coming, that he would be there to save her. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the sound of his voice, trying to imagine the biker arriving just in time. The seconds felt like hours, each one dragging by painfully slow. And then, the sound of boots stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. She slowly opened her eyes, trying to peer through the crack between the lockers, hoping to see something, anything, that would give her hope. And then, she saw it. A flash of movement. The heavy footsteps that had been creeping closer suddenly turned and began to retreat down the hallway. Her breath caught in her throat. Was it possible? Had the man given up? Her heart skipped a beat. But then she heard it. The rumble of engines in the distance. Low at first, like thunder rolling in from miles away. The sound grew louder and louder, until the unmistakable roar of motorcycles filled the air. Her eyes widened. It was him. He was here. The biker was coming. And with him, her salvation. The sound of the motorcycles grew louder, the engines growling like wild animals, echoing through the halls of the school. The man, now at the far end of the corridor, seemed to sense the change. He turned sharply, his face twisting in anger as he realized what was happening. "No," he shouted, his voice filled with rage. "You're not getting away from me." But it was too late. The biker and his crew were already here. The sound of their boots hitting the floor was like a battle cry, each step shaking the building. The little girl could hear them getting closer, their voices low but filled with purpose. "We've got your back," one of them said, the voice steady and strong. "No one's going to hurt you now." The girl couldn't believe it. The bikers were here. She wasn't alone anymore. She was safe. But just as she thought the danger was over, the man turned back, his anger boiling over. He charged at the bikers, fists clenched. "Stay away from her," he yelled. But the bikers were ready. They stood their ground, their faces hardening as they prepared to face the threat head-on. The little girl's hands shook. As she heard the confrontation unfold, she could hear the bikers talking to the man, their voices calm but firm. They were telling him to leave, telling him that his time was up. She peeked out from behind the lockers, her heart pounding as she saw the scene unfold. The man took a step forward, but the bikers were unrelenting. They moved in, their presence like a wall between her and the danger. The little girl could feel a strange sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was not afraid. The bikers were here, and they weren't going to let anyone hurt her. The confrontation was over in a matter of moments. The man, realizing he was outnumbered and outmatched, backed down. His face twisted in defeat as he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows from which he had come. The girl couldn't believe it. She was safe. The bikers had saved her. She let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. She was safe, and nothing was going to hurt her anymore. The little girl stood there, still trembling, her body pressed against the cold lockers. But this time it wasn't fear that gripped her. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, relief. She could hear the bikers behind her, their voices low but steady, filling her with a sense of security she had never known before. They weren't just strangers passing through. They were her protectors now, and she knew, deep in her heart, that she would be safe. She looked up at one of them, a man with a long beard and a leather vest that seemed too heavy for the soft, delicate world around them. His eyes met hers, and he gave her a reassuring smile, the kind of smile that said, "We've got this." As she stood there, a weight she didn't even realize she was carrying began to lift from her shoulders. The man who had chased her, the one with the heavy boots, was gone. He wouldn't hurt her anymore. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the air around her, taking in the silence that now surrounded them. The tension, the fear that had consumed her, was fading away, replaced by something that felt almost like peace. But as she started to relax, she heard one of the bikers speak, his voice steady but urgent. "Is she okay?" he asked. The words were simple, but there was a rawness to them, an understanding that they all shared, the need to protect, to keep her safe. The girl nodded, wiping her tear-streaked face with the sleeve of her hoodie. "I'm okay now," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. But the biker wasn't done. He walked closer, his boots thumping softly on the floor. "We're not going anywhere until you're sure," he said, his tone kind but firm. "You're safe now, but we need to make sure you're okay." The girl nodded again, looking up at the group of bikers who had surrounded her. They were a strange sight to her, men and women in leather jackets, tattoos visible on their arms. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel afraid. These people weren't like the ones who had hurt her. They were different. They were family, in their own way. "What happened?" one of the other bikers asked, a woman with short hair and a leather cut that read Storm. The little girl hesitated, her mind racing as she thought about everything that had happened. It was all a blur, the abuse, the fear, the running, the hiding. But she couldn't hide from the truth anymore. "My stepdad, he tried to take me," she said, her voice trembling. The bikers exchanged a glance, their expressions hardening. "Where is he now?" Another man asked, his voice tight. The girl pointed down the hall. He's gone. He left when you showed up. The bikers nodded, their faces grim. They didn't need to say anything. They knew what needed to be done. One by one, they turned and began walking down the corridor, their boots echoing with purpose. The girl watched them, feeling a rush of gratitude. They were going after him, after the man who had tormented her, who had hurt her for so long. She didn't need to worry anymore. They would take care of it. Come on, said the biker who had been speaking to her earlier. You're coming with us. You're safe now. The girl hesitated for a moment, looking down at her feet, feeling the weight of what had just happened. She had been running for so long, so terrified, and now, in an instant, everything had changed. But with the bikers around her, she felt a sense of security she never thought she would have. She wasn't alone. They weren't going to leave her. As they made their way out of the school, the girl looked up at the man with the leather vest. Are you going to stop him? She asked, her voice small. The biker smiled, though it was a tight, serious smile. We're going to make sure he never hurts you again, he promised. The girl took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her past begin to slip away. She wasn't alone anymore. She was with people who cared, people who would fight for her. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. I can see the girl's breath starting to steady, her hands no longer trembling as the bikers lead her outside the building. The air outside is colder than she remembered, the evening sky a deep shade of purple, the stars barely visible through the streetlights. The sound of the motorcycles in the distance grows louder, and she knows that the bikers are still in control of the situation. She walks beside the biker who spoke to her earlier, his strong presence a comfort. They move quickly, but there is no sense of panic. They are organized, precise, like a well-oiled machine. She feels safe, and for the first time in a long time, she allows herself to feel the weight of everything that has happened. You're going to be okay, the biker says, his voice gentle but firm. We won't let anyone hurt you again. His words bring a strange sense of calm to her, and she nods. For the first time, she feels like she is not running alone. She is not alone anymore. They reach the parking lot where the motorcycles are waiting, the bikes lined up in perfect rows like a small army of metal giants. The girl's eyes widen. She had never seen anything like it. The sound of engines roaring to life fills the air, the vibration of the bikes almost like a pulse in the ground beneath her feet. One by one, the bikers mount their bikes, their jackets gleaming in the dim light. They move with the confidence of people who have been through it all. The girl watches as they begin to take their places, ready to ride. She looks up at the biker who has been guiding her. What happens now? She asks, her voice still soft but stronger than before. The biker looks at her with a reassuring smile. Now, we make sure he knows that he can never hurt you again. The girl nods, her heart swelling with gratitude. It's not just about the bikers keeping her safe. It's about them showing her that she is worth protecting. Thank you, she whispers. The biker pats her shoulder gently. You don't need to thank us. You're family now. The word hangs in the air like a promise. The girl's chest tightens at the thought. Family. She never thought she'd have one again. She had been alone for so long. But now, with these bikers, with this strange, unbreakable bond, she knows that she has people who will fight for her. The biker who has been leading her walks up to his bike, pulling on his gloves and revving the engine. The others are already set, their engines purring in unison. Let's go, he says, his voice low but filled with purpose. And just like that, they take off, the roar of their engines filling the night as they speed down the road. The girl feels the wind on her face, the sensation of freedom rushing past her, and she knows that the danger is not over. But with these bikers, she feels stronger. She feels like she can face anything. As they ride down the road, the girl's mind flashes back to her stepdad, to the fear he had instilled in her, to the way she had been trapped in that life for so long. But now, with every mile they put between her and the school, with every inch they get closer to safety, she can feel that life slipping away. The bikers aren't just taking her away from danger. They are taking her toward a new life. A life where she is not afraid, where she can stand tall and breathe easy. The wind whips through her hair, and for the first time in what feels like forever, she smiles. She's free. They ride for what feels like hours, their convoy of bikes cutting through the night like a line of soldiers on a mission. The girl stays close to the biker leading the way, her thoughts racing. She doesn't know where they're going, but for the first time in so long, She trusts them. She trusts that they will protect her, no matter what. As the night continues to stretch on, the stars slowly begin to fade behind the light of dawn. The bikes slow as they approach a small house, tucked away on the outskirts of town. The girl looks up at the house, her heart swelling with a mixture of emotions. This is it. This is her new life. She's not alone anymore. She has a place where she belongs. And with these bikers, she knows she will be safe. The bikers begin to dismount, their boots thudding softly on the ground. The girl steps off the bike, feeling the earth beneath her feet, solid and real. She looks up at the biker in front of her, and for the first time, she feels something she hasn't felt in so long. Hope. You're home now, the biker says, looking at her with a steady gaze. The girl smiles, a tear slipping down her cheek as she steps forward, ready to embrace this new chapter in her life. No longer a victim, but a survivor. And with her new family, she knows she can take on whatever comes next. I stood in front of the small house, the air cooler now that the night had fully descended. The wind was soft, almost comforting, but still, the tension I had been carrying for so long hadn't fully left me. I glanced at the bikers, their eyes scanning the surroundings with vigilance, as if waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. The house, simple and humble, was a stark contrast to the chaos I had just escaped. I could feel the weight of the past few days, the fear, the running, the hiding. It all seemed like a distant nightmare now, but I knew better than to let my guard down. The man who had chased me would not give up that easily. Still, in this moment, with these people, the bikers who had made me feel safe, I could breathe easier. The leader of the group, the biker who had been guiding me through everything, walked up beside me, his tall figure casting a shadow in the dim light of the porch. He looked down at me, his expression unreadable. "You okay?" he asked softly, as though he genuinely cared. For a moment, I wanted to say I was fine, but I knew I wasn't. "Not yet." "I think so," I replied, my voice small but steady. I didn't trust my emotions yet. I had been too afraid for too long to believe that everything was truly okay. But I wasn't about to let my fear control me anymore. Not now. The biker gave me a look that seemed to say he understood, and for a moment, I felt like I wasn't the only one carrying the weight of the world. "You'll be safe here," he said, his voice calm, though it carried a firmness that left no room for doubt. I nodded, grateful for the reassurance. But deep down, I knew that safety was something that had to be fought for, something that didn't come easily. The house was modest, but I could feel the warmth inside. I followed the bikers inside, the sound of their boots heavy on the wooden floors. There were a few other bikers inside already, talking in hushed voices, discussing the next steps. I could hear the low hum of their conversation, but I was too exhausted to pay attention. All I could think about was the bed I saw in the corner, the soft blankets, the warmth, and the sleep I had been deprived of for far too long. As I walked toward the bed, I noticed a woman standing near the door. She was older, maybe in her mid-40s, with a stern but kind expression. She was watching me closely, as if sizing me up. "You're safe now," she said, her voice soft but filled with an authority that made me feel like I could trust her. "We'll take care of you. No one will hurt you here." Her words were like a balm to my frayed nerves. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of peace settle in my chest. I nodded, too tired to say anything. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The woman smiled and nodded, her eyes warm. But there was something else there, something that made me feel like she understood the depth of the fear I had been living with. "Rest," she said, gently guiding me toward the bed. "Tomorrow we'll talk. You need to get some sleep." The bed was soft, and I sank into it like it was the safest place in the world. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come right away. My mind kept racing, the events of the past few days flashing before my eyes like a movie I couldn't escape. But as the minutes passed, the warmth of the blankets and the steady rhythm of the bikes outside started to lull me into a sense of security. I let out a deep breath and finally let go of the fear. I was safe, at least for now. The sound of the bikes outside slowly faded as I drifted into sleep, the world outside quiet and still. But deep down, I knew that my story wasn't over. Not yet. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But for tonight, I was allowed to rest. The bikers had made sure of that. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I had a future ahead of me. one where I wasn't afraid anymore. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside, the morning light creeping through the thin curtains of the small house. It felt strange to be awake in a place where I didn't feel the weight of fear pressing down on me. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't have to worry about running, about hiding, about who might be coming after me next. I was safe, but I knew that it wasn't just the house that made me feel that way. It was the people inside it. The bikers. They had brought me here, protected me, and now they were my family. I stretched out on the bed, the soft sheets of comfort I wasn't used to. For a moment, I just lay there, not wanting to leave the warmth of the bed. But I knew that I couldn't stay hidden forever. I had to face whatever came next. I slowly sat up, the weight of the past few days still heavy in my chest. The door to the room creaked open, and I looked up to see the woman from last night standing in the doorway. She smiled softly when she saw me awake. "Morning," she said, her voice warm but steady. "How are you feeling?" I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to answer. "I'm okay," I finally said, my voice quiet. "I think I'm still trying to process everything." The woman nodded, stepping into the room and sitting down on the edge of the bed. "That's understandable. You've been through a lot." Her words were comforting, like a balm to my frayed nerves. "We're here to help you," she continued. "You don't have to go through this alone." Her words were kind, but there was something in her tone that told me she wasn't just offering help. She was offering something deeper, something permanent. I looked at her, my heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you," I whispered, not sure what else to say. She smiled again, her eyes warm. "You don't need to thank us. You're part of this family now. We take care of each other." She stood up, offering her hand to me. "Come on. We've got work to do." I took her hand, allowing her to help me up. I felt a surge of determination, a strength I hadn't known I had before. This was my new life now, and I wasn't going to be afraid anymore. The woman led me out of the room and into the main area of the house, where the bikers were gathered, talking in low voices, making plans. As I entered, all eyes turned to me, and for a moment, I felt exposed. But then one of the bikers, the one who had been with me the most, stood up and smiled. "Morning, kid," he said, his voice rough but warm. "Glad to see you up." I smiled back, feeling a strange sense of belonging. These people weren't just strangers. They were my protectors, my new family. The woman gestured for me to sit down at the table, and I did, my hands still shaking a little as I adjusted to the new reality I was living in. "We've got a plan," she said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "We're not just going to let this man slip away. We need to make sure he doesn't come after you again." The bikers around the table nodded, their faces hardening. "We'll make sure of that," one of them said, a tall man with a beard that nearly covered his entire face. "He won't get anywhere near you." I looked around the room at their faces, their determination. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of security I hadn't thought was possible. They were going to fight for me, no matter what. "What's the plan?" I asked, my voice stronger now. The woman who had helped me smiled, her eyes filled with a quiet confidence. "First, we gather all the information we can on him. Where he's been, who he's been talking to, anything that can help us track him down. And then, we go after him." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what this would involve, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to run anymore. With the bikers at my side, I felt like I could take on anything. "You're not alone in this," the biker who had been with me said, his voice reassuring. "We've got your back, kid." I nodded again, my resolve solidifying. This was my life now, and I wasn't going to let fear control me anymore. The woman stood up, her eyes scanning the room. "Let's get to work," she said, her voice sharp with purpose. The room shifted into action, everyone moving with a quiet urgency. I stayed seated for a moment, watching them, but then I stood too, ready to face whatever came next. I was no longer a victim. I was part of something stronger, something that would protect me. And together, we would fight back. The morning light streamed through the curtains, a new day, but the weight of what lay ahead still pressed heavily on my chest. I could hear the voices from the other room. The bikers were already up, already working. The house, though small, felt like the safest place I had ever been. I had never imagined that this, a house with bikers who had once been strangers to me, would be where I would find comfort and protection. As I dressed and made my way toward the main room, I saw the woman who had helped me yesterday, her face focused, Her eyes scanning a map spread across the table. The room was filled with bikers, all huddled together, discussing their next move. Their determination was palpable. I felt a surge of gratitude for these people who had become my family in such a short time. They weren't just keeping me safe. They were giving me hope, hope that I didn't even know I had lost until now. "We're going after him today," the woman said as I approached the table, her voice firm. "We know where he's hiding. We've got a plan." I nodded, my heart racing at the thought of facing him. The man who had caused me so much fear, so much pain, was still out there. But I wasn't the scared little girl anymore. I was ready to take control of my own life. The woman looked at me, her expression softening for just a moment. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked gently. I met her gaze, my voice steady. "I'm ready." The bikers, who had been preparing in silence, turned to look at me. There was no judgment in their eyes, only understanding. They had all been through their own battles, their own fights. Now, they were here for me, for my fight. One of them, a tall man with a gruff voice, stood up and slapped his gloves together. "We've got the plan. We go in, make sure he can't hurt her again, and we get out." He looked at me with a reassuring grin. "Don't worry. We've got this." The leader of the group, the man who had been by my side since the beginning, gave a short nod. "All right, let's move out. Time's ticking." I watched as they gathered their gear, the atmosphere now filled with purpose. Each of them had their own role to play, and they were ready to do whatever it took to make sure I was safe. As we headed out of the house, I felt a surge of adrenaline. The fear that had once been all-consuming was still there, but now it was different. It was replaced with a drive, a need to take back what was mine. The bikers led the way, their motorcycles roaring to life as they sped down the road. I climbed onto the back of one of the bikes, my heart beating faster as we rode toward the location where the man was hiding. The wind whipped through my hair, the sound of the engines filling the air, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel free. Free from fear, free from the past. As we approached the area, the motorcycle slowed, and we moved with precision, like a well-oiled machine. The group had scouted the area, and they knew exactly where to go. It wasn't long before we reached an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place looked abandoned, but I could feel the tension building in the air. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The bikers dismounted, their movements quick and efficient. "Stay close," the leader said, his voice low. "We go in quiet. We handle it, and we get out." I nodded, my stomach in knots, but I wasn't afraid anymore. This was my chance to take control. The bikers moved swiftly, their boots making barely a sound on the cracked pavement. I followed them, my breath shallow, my heart pounding in my chest. As we neared the entrance of the warehouse, I could see the man standing by the door, his back turned to us. He had no idea we were there. The leader signaled, and the bikers moved into position. Everything was happening so fast, my mind racing as I prepared for what was coming. The man shifted, and in that moment, the leader gave the signal. "Go." The bikers moved in, their voices low but commanding. The man turned, his eyes wide with shock. For a moment, he froze. But then, he realized what was happening. He reached for something in his pocket. But it was too late. The bikers were on him in an instant. I stood back, my body tense, my heart still racing, but there was no fear. Only a strange calm. I had never imagined that this would be how it ended, but here it was. The bikers, my new family, were making sure that he could never hurt me again. The leader stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed the man. "You're not going to hurt her anymore. We're done here." The man backed away, his face a mix of rage and fear. He didn't have the upper hand anymore. The bikers had taken control, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could finally breathe. The leader turned to me, his eyes soft. "It's over. You're safe now." I nodded, a small smile breaking through the tension on my face. It was over. I was free, and with the bikers by my side, I knew I had a family that would always protect me. The warehouse was quiet now, the sounds of motorcycles and boots fading into the distance as the confrontation ended. I stood in the shadow of the building, the weight of everything that had just happened slowly sinking in. The bikers were still moving, ensuring everything was under control, but I was frozen in place, trying to process the fact that it was finally over. The man who had tormented me for so long, who had made my life a nightmare, was no longer a threat. I wasn't sure how to feel. Relief, fear, sadness, all of it tangled together inside me. But what I didn't know was that I was safe. I looked up as the leader of the bikers approached me, his steps slow, his expression unreadable but calm. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes scanning me for any sign of distress. "You okay?" he asked, his voice steady. But there was an undertone of concern. I nodded, though the words felt hard to say. "Yeah," I managed, my voice cracking a little. "I think so." He studied me for a moment longer before giving me a small, approving nod. "You've been through a lot," he said, his tone softening just a bit. "It's going to take time to fully process all of this." His words felt like a weight lifted off me. He wasn't rushing me. He wasn't pushing me to feel something I wasn't ready to feel. He understood. "I don't know what to do next," I admitted, the truth hanging in the air between us. The biker sighed, his eyes going distant for a moment, as if he was thinking about his own past, about things he had been through. When he spoke again, his voice was firm, grounded. "You take it one step at a time. That's all any of us can do. You've got people here who are going to help you. We're not going anywhere." The simple sincerity of his words made something in me crack. I wasn't used to hearing that. I wasn't used to having people offer help without expecting anything in return. "Thanks," I whispered, my heart heavy with emotion I didn't know how to release. "You don't have to thank me," he said, shaking his head. "You're part of this now. We take care of our own." The sound of footsteps echoed behind us, and I turned to see the other bikers coming toward us, their faces set in determined expressions. The woman who had first spoken to me, the one who had made me feel safe from the moment we met, stepped forward. "He's gone," she said, her voice calm, but with a certain satisfaction to it. "He won't be coming back." I felt my breath catch in my throat. The weight of it all was finally starting to settle. It was over. "Are you sure?" I asked, the fear creeping back into my voice before I could stop it. She nodded, a reassuring smile on her face. "We've made sure of it. You're safe now. All that's left is for you to heal." I let out a shaky breath, the relief washing over me in waves. "I don't know how to heal," I admitted. "I don't even know where to start." The woman reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder, her grip firm but comforting. "It's okay. You don't have to figure it all out right now. You're not alone anymore. We'll help you find your way." Her words settled into me like a warm blanket. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't facing it alone. "We'll start slow," the leader said, his voice steady. "You take the time you need. If you want to stay with us, you can. If you want to go somewhere else, we'll help you with that too." I looked around at the bikers, the faces I had come to trust, and I realized something. This wasn't just about escaping one man. This was about a whole new life. A life where I was in control. A life where I didn't have to be afraid anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt the possibility of something new. The future was wide open, and I could walk into it with my head held high. I wasn't running anymore, and I wasn't alone. "I'll stay," I said, my voice stronger than before. The leader smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Good choice," he said. "We're in this together." The group began to move again, their focus shifting back to the practical matters of the day. But I stayed where I was for a moment longer, letting the weight of the decision sink in. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And with the bikers at my side, I felt like I could face anything that came my way. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't scare me. With the sun setting in the distance, I turned to walk with them, ready to face whatever came next. I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened, I would never have to face it alone again.